South Africa stands at a critical energy crossroads, with the just energy transition igniting a fierce debate about our nation's future path. Coal or renewable, tradition or change, or perhaps a mix. Today's guest is a distinguished industry leader serving as the Managing Director of Menar, Director of Future Coal Global Alliance, and a strategic leader in multiple coal enterprises across the country, and brings a crucial perspective to what truly serves South Africa's energy future.
Vuslat Bayoglu is a seasoned mining executive and influential voice in South Africa's resource sector with expertise that spans continents. As Managing Director of Menar and Director at the Future Coal Global Alliance, he brings a unique perspective on the coal industry, South Africa's complex energy transition journey, and the role of carbon reduction technologies. Today, he'll navigate the challenging terrain between traditional energy security and renewable aspirations, offering insights into how South Africa can chart a path that balances economic development, employment preservation, and environmental responsibilities in an evolving global energy landscape.
So great to have you with us, Vuslat. Welcome.
No, thanks very much. Thanks for hosting me.
Sure. So you are a mechanical engineer by profession, now a passionate miner. How did that journey unfold?
Look, I was born in Turkey.
Sure.
And I studied in Ankara, mechanical engineering, in a university called Middle East Technical University. And when I was actually working at the university at that time as a research assistant. Mm-hmm. And I was also doing some consulting work for the industry, like mainly at that time it was retail industry. Yeah. Because I was doing my master's in industrial engineering, which I didn't finish. Mm-hmm. This opportunity came up in Cape Town. A friend of mine called me and said, look, there's a factory here and they're looking for a general manager. I said, okay, it might be interesting, but I didn't know where South Africa is. Like I was ignorant, and I'm admitting here. Then they called me like 3 times in a week, and I realized that it's really serious now. Like maybe I can try. Yeah. So I told them, okay, let them buy my ticket, and then I'll go and see what happens. And flew to Joburg first, and from Joburg to Cape Town, and I fell in love with the city. First of all, it was beautiful. Yes. I think Cape Town is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And then I agreed with the owner of the business. I went back to Turkey, applied for my visa, work visa, waited about 3 months and got the work permit, and moved to Cape Town, worked for this company for 2 years with my contract. And then in those 2 years between 2001 and 2003, I realized that if one wants to make money and or get a good job, Johannesburg is the place to be. And Cape Town is lovely, nice. You can go and live there for a short period for your holiday and all those kind of things. But if you want to do business, it's the hub is Johannesburg. Yeah. And then I moved to Joburg, started a business with my business partner, and then initially we were doing some consulting work for the companies coming from Turkey. And we got involved with a coal mine in 2003, between 2003 and 2005. That's how my journey started in mining, actually. Because when I came here, I didn't know mining. Sure. But I realized actually country offers a lot of opportunities. As long as you work hard, you follow up what you need to follow up, then you come to a certain point where the opportunities start coming to you. So that's what happened to me, and now I'm involved in mining almost like 22 years since 2003, and I'm glad that I moved to Johannesburg. Yeah.
Look, you've got a firm stance on coal being a very reliable source of energy generation. Yeah. Just tapping into your engineering expertise, help us understand the technicalities around generating base load capacity and dispatching.
Right. Look, coal is a source of generating base load. Yeah. And I'll explain like what base load is, but I mean, it's not only coal, nuclear, gas, oil. These are like sources of making power, uninterrupted power, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Yeah. And because you just burn the coal, or you burn gas, or you fire the nuclear source, and then you generate power out of it by turning turbines. Whereas when it comes to renewable energy, you are reliant on the weather conditions. Sure. If the wind blows, you get power. If the wind doesn't blow, you don't get power. If the sun shines, you get power. If the sun doesn't shine, you don't get power. So the advantage of renewable is like it's complementary to base load, but we have to completely separate these two concepts. And, you know, I see actually a lot of people comment about these kind of things, especially social scientists. Like they go and talk as like experts in the industry, but they don't even understand the logic of this thing. Like, you can't use solar energy as baseload. Now they can't come up with the concept of we're going to do battery storage, this and that. Okay, good luck. Let's see how it's going to work. But it didn't work in other parts of the world. So the thing is, we have to, whatever we are traditionally producing power in the world, not South Africa, everybody, all the countries, okay, it will still be there. Okay. So people will come with these fantasies of like renewable energy. And unfortunately, they fail to date, and they will carry on failing because renewable energy doesn't produce baseload. So, and also renewable energy, like solar panels or windmills, wind turbines, these equipment need coal to be produced. Because the largest solar panel producer in the world is China, and China is producing solar panels with the power of coal. Coal is critical to generate baseload for South Africa. Like, it's like oil is critical for Saudi Arabia, it's their bread and butter. Okay. If any country intervenes and tells them, listen, stop extracting oil, what will their response be? Gonna be? It will be, forget about it, because they do like 10 million barrels a day and they make money out of it. Okay. They create that civilization with the money of oil. So our oil is coal. Because when I came to South Africa, South African power price was the cheapest in the world. South African power price is still cheap compared to the other countries. To give you an example, in the mines, for instance, we pay, like, let's say between 2 rand and 2 rand 50 a kilowatt hour to Eskom. Germans are paying 8 rand a kilowatt hour. Now, it's like 3.5, 4 times more than what South African consumers are paying for power. Germans are paying more. So, we can only produce the cheap power with abundant and cheap coal. And that's very critical for South African economy and for South Africa, because if we offer cheap and consistent power, people will come and invest in South Africa. They will build hotels, they will build smelters, they will build factories. I mean, there are cases like we will talk later on, but I mean, a South African company has got a ferromanganese plant in Malaysia. Why? Because Malaysia offers very cheap hydropower. And if Eskom carried on investing in its coal-fired power stations and make it like as efficient as possible, we could have had the cheapest power price in the world, and we could have dealt with this 35-40% unemployment rate, which is the worst in the world. So for South Africa, coal is the critical mineral to produce power, which will be cheap and consistent so that we can create jobs.
But when we look at the capital investment for renewables, Vuslat, we're looking at around 233 billion for solar and battery storage of about 23 billion. How do we not have confidence that it will offer a higher level of reliability, looking at the significance or the capacity of this kind of investment?
So there are plans and there are models, okay. But when it comes to practicality, we can't see these practical examples in the world. Okay. That's why I gave the example of, if you look at German power price, or if you look at the power price in UK, if you look at the power price in Denmark, these are really expensive power producers, okay? And and in some cases, like Germany had the issue of like having no power because When there's no sun shining, there's no wind blowing, and then there's no gas coming from Russia, they're in trouble. If the grid doesn't provide them power, which is power coming from France or coming from Sweden, then they are in ultimate, like, dire need of like getting power from somewhere. So a country putting themselves in a position like that in the name of like, I'm going to generate renewable energy, I'm going to generate clean energy. It's a bit of a like a not a really smart idea, because why would you sacrifice your energy security and in the name of something that doesn't work? Okay, baseload is critical so that a complementary renewable energy can work. If without baseload, renewable energy doesn't work. That's the whole world saw it in Germany, because they've got 170,000 megawatt installed renewable energy capacity without Russian gas. That means nothing, literally nothing. Okay, they need gas-fired power capacity so that they can use renewable energy capacity. The same applies to South Africa. South Africa's priority should not be building renewable energy. South Africa's priority should be what is going to happen when Eskom decides closing the coal-fired power stations, some of it, in 2030, because it's extended. Actually, it was going to be in 2026. If the CEO of Eskom was not changed, the guy was planning to close the coal-fired power stations, which would mean like we would get like 10, 12,000 megawatt out of the system. Where is that power going to come from? There is no answer for that. And sometimes I ask these questions. Even if you look at the intentions of like burning gas. Yes, maybe burning gas in Richards Bay might not be a bad idea. But we need to still see the numbers, if it works, compared to Eskom's cheap power coming from the coal-fired power stations. But burning gas in Mpumalanga, in a power station like Hendrina, Arnott, or Camden, I don't know, like, I don't know how do they do the numbers. Because I want to really see the numbers, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's say if it works. The second question that I ask is, we pay for gas in dollars. So why do we want to dollarize our power in South Africa? Which is very dangerous, because when the power price goes up, that means inflation. And with the Rand-dollar exchange rate, if anything goes wrong with Rand, if Rand weakens, that means that we're going to pay more for power. But currently, Eskom buys coal in rands and sells the power in rands. Okay, so the inflation of Eskom is related to more like CPI, PPI, normal things like with the fuel or with the copper or steel, whatever those, or cement. But if we bring another uncertainty, which can cause higher inflation in the country, that's not good for South African economy. And a bad South African economy is not good for the world. Because I see that like European Union is very excited to give money to South Africa, $4 billion or $4.7 billion. South Africa needs money for putting clean coal technologies in the coal-fired power stations. Because we need power. Without power, we cannot generate anything. If you look at our smelters, I mean, they're in dire situation because they don't have consistent and cheap power. They're closing them down. Ferromanganese, Cato Ridge is closing. Transalloys is starting and stopping. Metalloys is closed. Like, that's one of the things that we are trying to revive. Ferrochrome industry is going through a very hard time. Glencore, they're trying their best to keep the smelters going. Cemencor is trying their best to keep the smelter going. But if they have cheap and consistent power, they wouldn't have these issues.
Look, talking about affordability and reliability, I had a conversation with somebody very close to me. They're an engineer living in the UK. And one of the things they said so striking was that we'd rather freeze and cover ourselves in blankets than to switch on a heater, because switching on a heater is a symbol of luxury and money. And that, of course, speaks to their energy structure. And we can also look back at the impact that we've seen with load shedding that has happened extensively in the past years. And it really just says that at the heart of any decision is liability security. So what lessons can we pick out from countries like, and I want to draw your attention to your China and Germany, right, while we are making our call to where we should go, because those are real practical realities that we also know.
Right. Look, China is very pragmatic about their energy sovereignty and security.
Sure.
They try to be big in renewable energy, but they know that their bread and butter is coal. So they produce most of its power out of coal. But in the meantime, they also invest heavily in renewable energy.
Sure.
Because they're the largest solar panels manufacturer in the world.
Yeah.
And so what they do is, like, literally, they use the coal-fired power capacity to create a cheap power that feeds the industries, that feeds all the manufacturing systems that they have, and then they become very competitive.
Sure.
Okay, so just to give you an idea, if you think about it, ferrochrome is made out of chrome. So chrome is mined, and then it's smelted, then it gets a purer material, which becomes a ferrochrome, and then that's used in stainless steel.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 70% of the world resources in South Africa. 70%. Okay, most of our chrome goes to China. Now, if you look at the graph, what happens over the years, we were the largest ferrochrome producer in the world. Now China is the largest. So they take our ore and they make ferrochrome. Why? Because we are so cynical about coal. We say, no, we can't do coal. Forget about coal. Like, what is Europeans going to say to us? And then we lose all the jobs. Why? Because China burns the coal, and we export all the jobs in ferrochrome industry to China. That's what happened literally in ferromanganese industry. All ferromanganese plants are shut down because ferromanganese is produced in China. Now, 80% of the manganese ore is in South Africa, in the world. 80%. So China solely depend on South Africa on manganese.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not say solely, because they buy from Gabon and they buy from Australia. But when the resources in Gabon and Australia finished, then it will be only South Africa. But 80% of the resource means we are a very critical partner to China for steel manufacturing, steel production. And the same applies to ferrochrome, because without ferrochrome, you can't make the steel stainless. So how do we use this? I mean, I think Chinese producers are most probably smiling and looking at us, they say, or maybe laughing. Okay, what are these guys doing?
So
they want to build renewable energy capacity while they have base load challenges, like there's not enough base load capacity. And then they just carry on buying our chrome, making ferrochrome, selling to the world, or making stainless steel in their own country. And then we don't use the opportunity to create jobs. So that's China's position. In many of the industries, they target to make sure that they've got cheap and consistent power.
Sure.
When it comes to Germany, I earlier explained, I think it became a bit of a cult thinking. You can't actually change. It's like a religious discussion. You can't discuss a religion with another person, because it's the person's personal interest.
Yeah.
Now, if you try to talk somebody about coal, they think it's a swear word. I mean, there are certain banks, they close bank accounts of coal mining companies, right? In Europe, because they're in coal. So they clearly think that they should get out of coal completely. Now, they got out of coal. Yes, let's say there's no coal mining happening in Germany or UK.
Sure.
Then what is next? Gas. Gas is also a fossil fuel. Okay. It also creates emissions. Countries without having access to gas, what should they do? Countries like South Africa, which it has got vast resources of coal. Countries like India, they have vast resources of coal, and also South Africa is a big supplier. Growing economies need coal. So I give this example, like if you look at European Union, it was European Steel and Coal Association, it was. Because they put this association together so that all these countries have got their fair portion of coal and steel, because coal and steel meant development of a country, growth of a country. That's how they started European Union.
Sure.
Okay, the foundations of European Union. But now, if you look at today, they are against coal. They say South Africa, no, don't burn coal. But they developed their economy. Sure. They grew their economy. They are the first world. They've got the first world infrastructure. They got no issues with unemployment compared to South Africa. Sure. Okay, we've got 70% unemployment among youth. Okay, they don't have those issues. So why do they think that they should come and dictate South Africa what it should wear?
Sure.
To make power? They can come up with support if they want to really support it. They can come up and say, can we invest in clean coal technologies to deal with emissions? Can they invest in carbon capture and storage projects? Those things I would understand that. But when they say don't burn coal, invest in renewable energy, that doesn't solve the problem in South Africa, because it created a massive problem in Germany. Okay, so I mean, it actually unseated the current government in the elections. They lost their position because of all these like cult thinking and stopping all these baseload energy sources, and then relying heavily on heavily on Russia with the gas supply. I mean, I was in a conference last year in Vienna. One of our German colleagues told me that German government closed a 1-year-old coal-fired power station in Hamburg.
Sure.
And it had the latest clean coal technologies. So that's why I'm saying like it became a cult thinking. But we are not cult thinkers. South Africans are very open-minded. Okay, because of the history of South Africa. So when the companies or the countries approach South Africa, they should always think about it. They will be questioned. They will be asked, okay, why? Were you successful with this? Okay, like if you were successful, we're happy to do it. But if you failed, why do you want me to do something that you failed?
Sure.
We need, because I mean, if you're not asking that question, I will ask the question. If you're not asking, if I'm not asking, then CPB will ask the question. But we will ask the questions, and then it will eventually, the truth will come out and sanity will prevail. But I think we're getting there, because people are questioning about all these attempts of like, okay, invest in renewable energy. I appreciate President Ramaphosa because when he talks, he says it should be just and equitable.
Absolutely.
If it's not just, it won't work, because he is clearly understanding the potential results of closing coal-fired power stations.
Look, you are sitting on the board for World Coal Association, now Future Coal. What conversations are happening in that space, particularly with the future of coal? Also considering that, I mean, we know we've got a plan to close down the power stations. And I mean, how do you collaborate as well and partner and influence the decision makers around this?
Look, Future of Coal is doing work on promoting the usage of coal, but in a way that is like dealing with the emissions on a kind of a net zero basis.
Sure.
So the work that they do is critical, because it puts a lot of stakeholders together, talks to them, share with them information. Especially what I like about Future Coal is like promoting like clean coal technologies, and educating people that listen, world has been burning coal for so many centuries, okay, and it will carry on burning, but we need to deal with the emissions. So we should not kill the goose that's laying golden egg, because that's what coal does. Because if you think about like gas supplying countries or coal supplying countries, when Australia, China had a standoff, China started buying coal from South Africa, because there's an alternative. And with coal, there are a lot of alternatives for different countries. But when it comes to gas, it's more difficult. When it comes to oil, it's more difficult. The number of suppliers become less, and it becomes political. Okay. So Future Coal is trying to promote that, like coal is is a source of energy. It doesn't compete with renewable energy. It accepts, coal miners accept that renewable energy is complementary to what coal is doing, and coal has got a very wide use, not only power generation, but in other industries. It has got a massive use. One of them is Sasol, like making liquid fuel out of coal. Cement industry, it's critical for cement. It's critical for steel industry. There's metallurgical use of coal, which is very important for steel, for ferromanganese, for ferrochrome, for ferronickel. So it has a very wide use, and Future Coal is actually advocating this. It brings a lot of sanity to the discussions, so that people deal with an organization which has got a memory, an institutional memory, to talk about coal and the use of coal, and how can we minimize the effects of coal. These are the main things that it targets.
Look, talking about the technologies to reduce the carbon emission, are we seeing traction and progress in this piloting projects? Because I think it's an opportunity to really even present it as an opportunity to even challenge the court order, because we do have one that is against building more power stations. So are we seeing traction? Because if it's piloted and it's sort of working, then we've stand a good chance to say we can reduce these things.
So in South Africa, there are a lot of there are not a lot of attempts to deal with these things, but there are two things that I can mention. One of them is Calvin Power Station, working with government to deal with capturing the gases, the chimney gases, and I think it's quite successful. They prove that they can do that. And the other one is Council for Geosciences, working with Department of Mineral Resources and Energy to deal with carbon capture and storage. They have a site in Leandra. I actually went to the launch of it. They drilled about 1,800 meter hole, and they want to actually liquefy the carbon dioxide and pump it to the well, so that the geological formation can absorb it. Okay, and that could be revolutionary to deal with the emissions, because if that works, there will be zero emissions coming from the coal-fired power station. That's why, I mean, I appreciate these efforts, because it's critical to deal with the issue. If the issue is carbon dioxide, let's deal with it. Okay, let's not stop the coal-fired power stations, because where are we going to get the power? This is a big economy. People don't understand it. There's a massive economy. Like, we have 50 million people, 40,000 megawatt installed capacity. We've got a very important role to play in the mining industry in the world. Manganese, chrome, platinum group metals, coal, iron ore, copper, nickel, even though they are small, but we have a role to play for the manufacturing of batteries, manufacturing of steel in the world. We've got a very vibrant tourism industry. We've got a manufacturing industry. We've got a great financial industry. So financial services industry. So you can't actually put the country in jeopardy by not making the decisions, right decisions. And to be honest, with all these efforts with carbon capture and storage, and also capturing the bad gases from the chimneys, I think government needs to make a decision about what's going to happen, what is next for us to do. It's a mix of things with gas, nuclear, and coal. I'm not even talking about renewable energy, because they're not in the same league. They're in a different league. I'm talking about the Premier League. Premier League is the base load. Renewable energy is not even for the first league, because a coal-fired power station gives you 24 hours a day power. A solar panel gives you 6 hours a day. That's the reality. Okay, so what is the decision on nuclear, gas, and coal? And without making it political, but rather commercial, and the right commercial decisions, and also maybe involving private sector.
Like, talking about the transition, the investment requirement for it is actually 1.5 trillion. And we're talking concessional loans, debt, and a fraction of grants. I mean, there's a fair dependency of multinational for us to be successful in this. What's your thought around this?
So, look, you know, when you look at the cost of power, let's say if you want to build a coal-fired power station, it's about $1 million per megawatt.
Yeah.
Okay. If you build a solar capacity, let's say it's $800,000 per megawatt. It's cheaper. And then remember, they think that it's free.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not free because you need to pay $800,000 a megawatt, and then you're going to get power only 6 hours a day versus 24 hours a day. Okay. And now, the challenge with the solar capacity is how do you bring it to a place where you're going to use it? So our solar capacity is in Northern Cape, most of it. Okay. So you need to build a grid. Okay. And Eskom wants to build 14,000 kilometers. They built 74 kilometers last year. Yeah. Okay. Only 74 kilometers. So where is this money going to come from? Who's going to pay this money? Because at the end of the day, whatever our minister and president is deciding about, like the stance of the country about energy, that money is going to come from the people's pockets. It's the tax. Okay. So that's why we are raising our voices. It's the tax money that's going to go and finance that, because Europe is not giving the money for free. Okay. It's a loan. Right. It's not a donation. It comes with conditions, okay, which we don't know the conditions. Maybe they can tell us if they are donating the money to South Africa, okay. So if it's a loan, do we want to get a loan to build grid from Northern Cape to Joburg? Or do we want to get a loan to build another coal-fired power station so that in Mpumalanga, which has got the grid? Yeah. So our coal-fired or our fire system, our power system, is centralized in Mpumalanga, mainly, okay. So we got the grid capacity in Mpumalanga. That takes the power from Mpumalanga to Gauteng, to Cape Town, to Durban, okay. So now we want to change the whole system for something that doesn't work. Solar capacity or wind capacity is providing you power for like 6 hours a day or 5 hours a day, whereas coal, gas, nuclear powers you 24 hours a day. Yeah. Our grid is in Mpumalanga, not in Northern Cape, not in Eastern Cape. Why do we want to rock the boat? What is the purpose? I mean, do we want a loan from Europe for this? No. But if you want a loan, maybe you use that money for clean coal technologies, not for renewable energy. That's not going to work. Because we cannot be the guinea pig of the world. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
Then it will mean chaos in the country. Yeah. It's going to destabilize the country. Sure. We can't afford. We have a beautiful country. Things are working. Yes, we've got challenges. Every country has its own challenges. But instead of improving, we're going to go backwards.
And start, yeah.
We're not going to go forward with this discussions.
Sure.
And if people are thinking that, okay, what I'm saying doesn't make sense to them, then they must come up and you must interview somebody who thinks that we can power this country with renewable energy sources.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Look, when you look at the US politics, I think they've just highlighted risks on dependency, particularly when you look at an energy system which holds a country together. What lessons can we learn? Firstly, from the US withdrawing themselves from the Paris Agreement and ultimately that official withdrawal of their funding to South Africa for the just energy transition, because it showed a bit of sensitivity of what we are trying to do to external policies. What can we learn which should almost put us in a position to make a call with urgency with what happened with the US?
Look, obviously, it's about the change of politics in the US due to the change of administration from Democrats to Republicans. And President Trump and his team believe that they need to be very decisive about energy policies, and they believe in coal, they believe in fossil fuels, they don't believe in renewable energy. They had some challenges. If you remember, in Texas, people died because they froze to death, actually, when they didn't have power. So they're very pragmatic about that they need energy security. Okay, then they will use everything that they have, because US is a massive country, and they have coal resources. They've got gas. They've got shale gas. I mean, I mean, they started exploring shale gas since 1974, ExxonMobil, and then they commercialized it. So they got large amounts of gas. They got oil. They have nuclear power. But a large country like that with massive manufacturing industry, obviously they need to have all sorts of energy that they can use. So the lesson that we can learn from them is, whatever you're good at, like improve and work on that. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Okay. If you try to reinvent the wheel, it actually, people push back. So we have to agree that without being ashamed that we are big in coal. We are big in coal-fired power generation. We are big in liquid fuels from coal. Okay. And we will try our best to minimize our emissions. We'll try our best to build a complementary renewable energy. But we should not fear of telling the world, guys, please excuse us, because we got a massive gap between rich and poor. We got 40%, 35, 40% unemployment rates. We can't carry on like this. So for that reason, please leave us alone or help us with clean coal technologies. Come and work with us. But don't put, earlier you asked, for instance, about the grid, like that large amount of money that we need to put. We don't have that money. So if we had that money, why would we not spend that money for housing of people or education or healthcare instead of building grid from Northern Cape to Joburg so that some renewable energy companies can sell the electrons to the grid? Why? It doesn't make sense. So we got social issues that needs funding. Okay. I mean, United States says they're cutting the funding for HIV patients. Okay. Why do we need the United States for that? We got our own resources. We can solve that problem. We should not be needing United States. So for these kind of things, we need to use our sources right. That's what America is doing at the moment. That's why Trump and his team are so determined and so adamant about like what they should do for United States. They have a massive national interest. Okay. It's actually interesting because almost like second or third in charge is a South African, but he's talking about the American interest in the United States. But we need to have our own national interest. What is our national interest? Not exporting jobs to China, not getting a loan from Europe and then trying to sort of like build renewable energy capacity, not building a grid from Northern Cape to Gauteng. We already have grid. Our national interest is dealing with the gap between rich and poor, dealing with the unemployment issues, creating jobs, creating better standards for the people in the country, not some other people's like requests or interests to satisfy them. We don't need that. We need to create our own national interest, and we need to work on that one, and we need to explain to the world, guys, we are doing this because our national interest shows us that we have to do this.
Look, SA has made commitments. That's the effect around, transitioning to the renewables, and the UN really holds us to account to that. And further, we have received funds to even start with the process. Should we decide to stay in coal or extensively shift the timelines, what impact do you think this would have on our funders and our international relations? Because I think we've got to be, even in our decisiveness, we've got to be responsible.
I think we need to talk to them. I think that's what our president does very well. We need to explain them our position. So that's why I say, I think we need to put our position very clear. We are not here to pollute the world. We are here to minimize the pollution. Okay, but we have our own circumstances. Okay, so let's say if a 60-year-old male and a, let's say, 20-year-old female goes to a fitness person and ask him like, give us a recipe for training. would he give the same recipe to these two people?
Sure.
One is 60 years old male, the other one is 20 years old female. It will be different. Okay. The intensity will be different. The whichever equipment they're going to use will be different.
Yeah.
Okay. So that can't be one recipe for the whole world about, okay, we will do just transition. There is no such a thing. Some countries are rich in gas. Some countries are rich in coal. Some countries are rich in hydro.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to have our own recipe. And South Africa's recipe is we will burn coal and then we will have complementary renewable energy. We can invest nuclear, or we can invite private companies to invest in nuclear, and we can build gas-fired power stations. But we need to make sure that we got the right mix so that we are not out of power.
Yeah. Look, looking at what's playing out in South Africa, where is an investor's headspace? And I'm asking you because you are an investor in the coal space. What are the investors thinking around these issues?
It depends. There can be two thinking, okay? Yeah. Like some people might think that it's all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't invest in South Africa, it's going very bad. And then you go and complain about your own country to other people. Okay. Yeah. Or you can say, okay, this can be an opportunity because other people will not be interested in investing. I'll invest. I know government is going to help me because today, if you go to Eskom, if you go to Transnet, okay, they will open the doors for you. They will embrace you and they will they will tell you, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Okay. This was different like compared to 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. We got very good administrations. These people are very much orientated to help investors.
Sure.
I mean, Transnet is running a great process about opening the rail for third-party access. That's perfect.
Yeah.
They're saying, okay, wherever they fail, private companies can come and invest in rail, in rolling stock. Okay.
Sure.
And I think we should give credit to Michelle Phillips, Russell Barkis, and the team in Transnet, and obviously the minister. Same applies to power. I mean, if you approach Eskom today with a good project that you need power, or you want to generate power, they will listen to you. They will try to help you. They will try their best because they're very well aware that without Eskom playing the role, economy will never grow. So they know that. So I think we've got a lot of advantages. We've got the people understanding like what's going on, and this is not really relevant to a political party. Okay, I think this government that we have now, they're trying their best. I'm not saying they're perfect. Okay, there's no government perfect in the world. But I think people understand that if we don't deal with these issues of power or rail, okay, we will not improve our economy. We will not grow the economy. If we don't grow the economy, there won't be new jobs. Government cannot carry on being the biggest employer in the country. It should not work like that. Government should cut their waste wherever they're wasting money. Okay, if they're wasting money. And then they should actually allow private companies to prosper and then to create jobs.
Look, mining plays a beautiful role in communities, and I've seen that community building seems to be very close to your heart. I mean, having seen you participate in the work that your organizations do, where does that come from? And would you say that your stance on coal comes from your heart for people, given the impact that the changes would have on the people?
Look, first of all, every mine needs a social and labor plan.
Yeah.
So that which entails bursaries, internships, learnerships, local economic development projects, spending money on human resources development.
Yeah.
So we are obligated to do this.
Sure.
So DMRE watches us, and we are gladly doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is important for any mine to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Because one needs to show the communities that they are there to support them.
Yeah.
They're not there to grab and, go and cash out, that kind of thing. But on top of the social and labor plan, what we tried to do is like in two acquisitions that we had, like Kangra and Zag.
Yeah.
When we bought, we decided to push, to change the contractors on site, procurement practices, and we support the communities. And if you look at Kangra today, it's a very, very successful example that we try to give opportunities to the community-based companies.
Sure.
And sometimes you can't find the community-based companies, then you try to create them.
Yeah.
Try to train and educate the people so that they understand human resources, they understand logistics, they understand finances and accounting. So what we think in the company is we say, okay, look, we make money out of this mine, which is given to us by the government to mine, but at the end of the day, it's people's land, okay, and we need to return back as much as we can, in the form of employment, in the form of procurement opportunities, in the form of social and labor plans.
Sure.
So these are, and on top of that, like it's from time to time it happens, like if somebody needs to be, for instance, paid for a hospital fees, okay, like maybe a surgery, that kind of thing. We love to do those kind of things as well, because, like, again, we are human beings at the end of the day. I mean, we live to help each other. We live for our dignity, and I learned Ubuntu here. So I think that's though these values are critical, and it's not all about making money. It's also paying back to the people in the area.
Look, Vuslat, thank you so much for your insight and your passion in this industry. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Nola. Thanks very much.
Vuslat's insights challenges us to rethink South Africa's energy path forward. The balance between coal's established infrastructure and renewable potential remains complex, but clarity emerges through informed conversation. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye and God bless.